welcome to on the show today. And as you will see, he's wearing his Stetson proudly, and he is no stranger to Truth to Power. He is no stranger to Oakland County as well as other parts throughout the state of Michigan. And we are very blessed to be joined by none other than Mr. Joe Person.
How you doing? As I say, I wore the Stetson because it's going to be shootout at the Rinsen Corral tomorrow. I just know that the candidates that the Oakland County Democratic Black Caucus is endorsing, we expect them to win.
Absolutely.
We're not saying hope they win. We expect them to win because we're putting in the work.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, we have a young man here that is seeking your support for the Michigan Democratic Party chair, and that is the Honorable Curtis Hertel.
Thank you so much for having me on.
We are so blessed to have you on the show as well. But I just want to throw the first question at you and just want to ask you, who is Curtis Hertel? Tell us a little bit about Curtis Hertel.
So I grew up in the East English Village, 3560 Kensington, and before that on Whittier next to St. Matthew's Church, and before that on Haverhill. My family has been steeped in public service our whole lives. If you live in the right neighborhood on the east side of Detroit, my dad was your state rep, my Uncle John was your state senator, and my Uncle Dennis was your congressman. And all Democrats, of course. I've been going door to door since I was 5 years old in a little red wagon. But the first public servant wasn't any of the politician. It was my grandfather, who served in World War II, got a Purple Heart, came back, ran a bar on the east side of Detroit, and then went back to school in his 40s to become a teacher in the Detroit Public Schools. Proud AFT member, taught government and civics. And for me, he instilled in our family the importance of public service, the importance of getting things done for people. And so my career, whether it was in the county commission passing a living wage, or was Register of Deeds suing every major bank in the country to try to keep people in their homes, or when I was in the Senate building from 11 seats to a majority, has been about getting good things done for people. I'm a believer in the Democratic Party. I believe the Democratic Party is a force for good in the world. And if we're not, if we're not the party of water affordability, if we're not the party of fair wages, if we're not the party for equal housing and fair housing and affordable housing, if we're not the party for low cost of daycare, if we're not that party, then there won't be a party in America fighting for those things. And to me, that's why it's so important that Democrats organize, get ready, and win.
Well, you've been campaigning for, the last several months, and has there been any misconception about Curtis Hertel, either on social media or just in the printed media?
I got a pretty thick skin.
You got to.
Yeah, I ran for Congress, and the Republicans spent $30 million saying god awful things about me. So I got pretty thick skin. At the end of the day, none of that stuff bothers me. The idea that I'm not a Democrat, I've been a Democrat my whole life. My whole family's been Democrats my whole life. My family has over 100 years of service to this state, and there ain't one Republican in there. And my father would come back from heaven to come get me if there was any question there. So I think that's that's silly. Some discussion about my wife, that one bothered me because they're the whisper campaigns. No one ever published this stuff because it's such nonsense. My wife had one job for a Republican state legislature when she was in her 20s. And the reason she did was she worked at Texas Roadhouse part-time and worked at the Alzheimer's Association. She wasn't somebody in politics. She was somebody that was into healthcare. And somebody offered her a job, and she is a consummate public servant. But she has worked in that administration, but she also has worked in Governor Whitmer's administration. She is, I can tell you that I've never seen her vote or give money to any Republican ever. And so that's silly too. And that's the other thing about politics these days, bringing people's family in it and everything else. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I signed myself up for this. She didn't. So you know, for me, that's a silly whisper campaign that's out there. My wife's a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. Our whole family is Democrats. I got a son at Wayne State. He's a Democrat. He's coming down to convention. So we're excited for convention. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to get out of this thing without a little bit of. But I've never said anything about my opponent, and I'm not interested in it. I'm going to keep running my campaign and having a positive message.
You know, the sad thing about this is that we want to talk about Democrat or Republican. I remind everybody, because before I became a Democrat 8 years, my whole life I had been a Republican. But I had been one of those good Republicans that did right by the people.
Yes.
Here's the thing. The Republicans, we better thank God for some of them, because if they didn't do what they did last year in 2020 or 2021, you know, January 6th, Donald Trump probably would have stole the election then. So let's not always try to say every Republicans are this or Democrats are this, because I have some issues with Republicans, but I also have some issues with Democrats, you know? And sometimes in Oakland County, I always say sometimes I can't tell a Democrat from a Republican. So let's not go down that road, and especially about your wives. Everybody knows politically. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Tip O'Neill, Sam Rayburn, and all of those good Democrats back then, even though they were Democrats and I was Republican, said, we don't talk about family. Our children, our wives, my mother-in-law or my father-in-law are off limits.
Yeah, I think that's just people's kids. All that stuff should be off limits. The other one, my favorite one, is they said that I lost an election. That's true. I lost one election. I won 8 elections before that. I'm the only person in this race who's ever won an election. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I led the Senate Democratic Caucus from being in the super minority. We had 11 members. We had less members than the Wu-Tang Clan. And I built that from 11 seats to a majority. So I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of the wins we've had. We had one tough loss, but I think a lot of good people have lost an election. But President Obama lost an election at some point in his career. So I'm not calling myself President Obama, by the way. I'm just.
Yeah, we don't want to get that misconception.
I just want to be clear. Lots of good people have lost an election in their lives. But you got to, you know, hope you win a few, right? I've won a few in my day.
Well, as they say, sometimes when a door closes, another one opens.
Yes.
So that could be one of the reasons. But, Curtis, talk about what is your vision for the Michigan Democratic Party and how do you plan to achieve it?
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do. So we need more organizers on the ground. You know, the Democratic Party used to have a Detroit office. We need to rebuild that. We need to have people on the ground in the off years. We need to do a lot of listening. One of the things that, if I'm elected, I want to do right away is start a listening tour. Representative Teola Hunter and I have had a conversation about doing a listening tour around the city of Detroit and other communities that people feel like they haven't been heard. She's 93, by the way.
Yeah, we gave an award out last night.
Yes.
You know, there was a Teola, you know, P. Hunter Award that we gave out to a couple of recipients last night.
Yeah, we want to honor that,
Right.
that legacy of service. So we have to fix that for sure. Our one campaign is broken. It cannot be about the top of the ticket just. It's got to be about state house and state senate races, about county commission and school board that actually touches people's lives. We got to stop hiring people from outside of our state to run our campaigns. The people that are in our state, one, are smart, they know their communities, and we should be investing in them for a couple reasons. One, they know the community, but two, they're also responsible back to the community afterwards. These people that come in from out of state, and then every question you ask them, oh, I got to call Delaware. Oh, I got to call here. No, at the end of the day, we should empower people to be able to make decisions on the ground. That's why we hire you. I think that a lot of that has to be fixed. So more organizers throughout the year. back to a coordinated campaign and hiring our own people moving forward. Also, we should answer the phones at the MDP and a couple other things that we should fix.
Well, let me ask you another question. I'm going to let Joe ask you a question. But how would you handle the conflicts within the party? And what is your approach to settling them?
You know, I think that we're a big tent, and we're always going to be a big tent. There's always going to be fights back and forth, and that's just natural. But I will say that this last election, I feel like we let the fights divide us to a point where it really lost us votes. And so, we had the first Palestinian American on a unity slate. We did that in conjunction with the Jewish caucus. And they sat down and had coffee, and they realized they can work together. And in all honesty, that's the kind of peace and understanding that we have to build inside the party. So right now there is a lot of anger, and rightful anger. I mean, it's a circular firing squad. Everybody's trying to point to somebody else saying, you're the reason we lost. I always tell people, look at people like me. If only 30% of people that look like me voted for Vice President Harris, you want to blame somebody. Stop blaming everybody else. So at some point, what I would say is that we got to heal. We got to be one team. We're going into an election that is unprecedented. Open Senate seat, open governor seat, open Secretary of State, open Attorney General, every seat in the House, every seat in the Senate. That's never happened before in Michigan history. And so if we're not one team, the trifecta that we built and just lost, is it a relic of history? Are we going to have another 40 years before we get there? Or are we going to actually do the work on the ground, unite, be one team, and rebuild and win? I think we'd be much better off if we did that.
Okay, Joe.
Wow. When all of the seats are open. So
Everything.
You're right. So we have to pick an individual you got to get in and hit the ground running. What I'd like to know, I want to go to your policy and platform. What are your top policy priorities for the MDP, and how do you, plan to advocate for them?
So for me, we got to go back to being a working families party, and the working poor. We lost in this last election people making less than $50,000 a year. Imagine a world where that happened before this. It's just mind blowing. But I think it's because people feel like we're not fighting hard enough for them. And like I said before, we gotta be that party that fights for fair wages. We gotta be that party that fights for water affordability and housing affordability. We gotta be that party that's standing up with them. And I think there are a lot of people that have lost trust. Also, in all honesty, people see the Democratic Party as weak. We don't respond to our stuff. Think about when President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act, largest increase in health care since FDR. What did Democrats do that ran for Congress in 2010? They ran away from it. None of them could be found defending the president. And we had a massive loss. 2 years later, President Obama said, no, I'm going to call it Obamacare. You want to call it Obamacare? I'm going to call it Obamacare too. And I'm going to sell it to the American people. And he won at huge numbers. And we got to stop being so fearful. Stop being so weak. We got to make the case for what we believe in out to the people. And I think that in itself, people will gravitate more to the party. Because I think right now they just see us as being, frankly, someone who's not there for them and also weak. It's hard to sell people to come into the party if that's the case.
Yeah, a lot of times when I hear things on TV, where's the rapid response from the Michigan Democratic Party? I know that everybody jumped on board when they were talking about women's rights, the reproductive rights, but they weren't talking about the John Lewis bills. They weren't talking about advocating for veterans. They weren't talking. It's so many things that Democrats should be doing that they're not doing. Like you say, we see them weak. But moving right along, how do you address pressing issues in Michigan, such as the education, health care, and economic development, and specifically as it relates to everybody who don't have, because it's a choice between the haves and the have-nots. That's
yeah. It's actually interesting. Keith Williams put out a plan on hope zones that I think is really interesting. When you actually look at moving forward, instead of always going to the big business, right? And we need big business too. We're an auto town. We need automobiles, but actually providing those same opportunities for young entrepreneurs, and to me that's a really important aspect moving forward. Rights are always going to be important. So when we talk about abortion rights, I'm not saying the Democratic Party needs to move away from that.
Right.
I mean, because that's who we are. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you're at your kitchen table and you're trying to figure out, am I going to buy medicine or I'm going to buy food this week? Am I sending one kid to college? What am I going to do with the other one? You know, if you're having those conversations at home, everything else is just a luxury, right? I
Exactly.
mean, we got to get back to the point where people feel like we're fighting for their kitchen table, and that's where I think we, as a part, I'll give you an example: the unemployment insurance that we just passed. They didn't pass it until after the election. We had people hurting before, and you had a seat in the Upper Peninsula. We don't have a seat up there any longer. Where seasonal unemployment, you jump 2-3 times percent. Two to three times the unemployment rate, and they literally held a bill that could fix the worst unemployment law in the country until after the election. It doesn't make any sense, and so for me, we got to get back to that should have been a top priority. That should have been one of the things that we said, all right, we're going to pass this, and we're going to be able to hold these seats because of it, and because people will feel like we're fighting for them.
So let me see. So
We got to take a break. So
Okay.
we got to take a
Hold that
break.
thought, yeah.
So hold that thought.
Okay.
We'll be right back with the chair candidate for the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus and my other special guest, Joe Person. We'll be right back.
My name is Joseph Person. I'm the chair of the Oakland County Democratic Black Caucus, and we are endorsing two great candidates, Mr. Curtis Hertel for the Michigan Democratic Party chair and Mr. Keith Williams for the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus. Vote February 22nd at the Michigan Democratic Party Convention held at the Wren Center in downtown Detroit. The Oakland County Democratic Black Caucus is proud to be a sponsor of the Truth to Power TV show.
Clean up on aisle 5.
Clean up on aisle 5. Sounds like my life right now. Just one big mess.
What's going on?
It's my property taxes.
What?
I am behind and I am so worried that I'm going to lose my house. I can pay some of it, but I can't pay it all at once.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm Eric Sabree, the Wayne County Treasurer. The last thing I want is for anyone to lose their property to tax foreclosure. We have assistance programs to help. Visit us at treasurer.waynecounty.com and we'll help you keep your home. We're here to help.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Mattered. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered, A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wccccd.edu.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I want to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. 2 of his 3 children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield, and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.
Joined by none other than Joe Person from Oakland County, and also our special guest that we're interviewing, who's a candidate for the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, Mr. Curtis Hertel. Joe?
The question I was going to ask you is that I like that you had said we got to do better than just the one campaign taking care of the ticket at the top, and the fact that you talked about the county commissioners, city clerk, school board, city council. So am I hearing a commitment to put boots on the ground to help us make this a reality? Because we've heard talk. We've had other chairs that just give us talk.
I understand. And the answer is 100% yes. And I will tell you this. You can go back through my legislative career. You can talk to people like Virgil Smith, who served with me in the legislature. My word is my bond. It's all we got in public service at the end of the day. If your word's no good, it doesn't really matter what you say in this business because no one's going to listen to you. Absolutely. And I want it in this year. I mean, what's important to me, I'm not saying we're getting involved in the mayor's race in Detroit. I'm not saying we get involved in all those. What we should do is help turnout. And the reason for that is somebody turns out in a mayoral election, pretty likely they're going to turn out next year as well. We got to start that pattern of voting every time. I want boots on the ground this year and even more next year. This idea that we show up in September and ask for somebody's vote, that is the problem. They've already made a decision at that point. They already feel abandoned at that point. They already feel like we're not listening at that point. So we got to be there as early as possible, and I'm looking forward to doing it this summer. And so we got to raise money for all this. You know, I mean, like, this is not organizers cost money. But you know, when I was in the Senate caucus, when we won the majority, I went from raising $6 million a year to $12 million a year to $24 million a year. I know how to raise money. I know how to sell this.
Okay, so folks, we're going to get some money to help us get the boots on the ground, because that's important. You know, a question has always come up in terms of the Black Caucus. In Detroit, they passed the reparations committee bill. We're talking about some things. What are your thoughts on the reparations, and how does it align with the party's platform?
I think that it's important to recognize the institutional racism that has been had in this country, and to make up for it. Now, what I think is programs like what we were talking about earlier, Hope Zones, actually can help do that as well. It's got to be about opportunities. And this is one of those things where I think, one of the places where I think the Democratic Party does poor on is we don't defend those kinds of positions.
Exactly.
So let me give you an example. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? You have the president blaming a helicopter crash on DEI, which is nonsense. But we only defend it from a moral aspect of racism, which is it certainly is racist, but that's not the only part. What we should actually defend is the fact that DEI makes the room smarter, that more people at the table looking at a problem from different perspectives scientifically make better decisions. And that's true in business, it's true in government, it's true in everything. And so instead of going out and actually defending it from that perspective, we just say, well, it's racist. You know, that's not convincing anybody, right? Like unless you already agree with us, that's not convincing you. We got to go out and sell the stuff. And I think that's where Democrats are seen as weak often, and I think it's why you're seeing a lot of young men not come to the Democratic Party, because they don't think that we are actually standing up for our stuff.
That's one of the biggest questions that in the Black Caucus, in the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, we constantly talk about these types of things, that the Democrats are not defending me. And moving right along, the next part of that, part two is, you know, how are you going to employ and increase voter turnout, in particular with the black men and black women, the Gen Xers and the Gen Zers, because those are the ones that have just have kind of checked out because nobody has shown that they care.
Yeah, well, this is the slowest generation in American history to buy a house, the slowest generation to buy a car, the slowest generation to start a family. And it's not cultural. I think people think that it's because the culture's changed. It's because they don't have any choice. In 1960, the average CEO made 50 times more than their employee makes, and now it's 365 times. It has become almost impossible. You know, it used to be you could, you know, work at a factory, you could send your kids to college, you could afford a house up on a lake somewhere. You lived a much different life than you live now, and young people see it. They see that their parents' lives were easier than theirs are. And so we got to be the party that's actually reaching out and talking to those people. And one, it's the boots on the ground, but two, it's actually having a message that actually speaks to them and the pain that they're feeling in their lives. And also, we got to be willing to go outside the traditional media. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you think about it, 30% of the country reads a newspaper. None of them are, you know, and very few of them are in the young people's category. So we got to up our social media game. We got to be willing to go into difficult rooms. The Republicans have built a pyramid of disinformation, right? It starts at the very top. The New York Post, which was owned by Alexander Hamilton, is now owned by a Republican right-leaning MAGA force, and they just drive negative information down through Facebook and X, whatever the hell we call it now, TikTok, all that stuff. And yes, it's funded by Russian oligarchs, and yes, it's, all kinds of problematic, but we have not competed in that space. We're getting, for a party that has more young people than they do actually involved in us, we don't ask them for their help on this stuff. We ask people in the Democratic Party to do three things: write a check, knock a door, make a call. We have the hive mind of the Democratic Party, all these smart people that are involved in data and social media and all those things. We don't ask for their help. We just ask them for the same darn things 3 times in a row, over and over and over again. It's time that we actually look into ourselves. We keep, everyone keeps waiting for the cavalry to come. We are the cavalry. We need to look into our own teams and actually build that out.
It's funny you say that about social media. Every time I go on social media over the last 2 weeks, I don't care what I was doing, what I was looking at, if it was something political, one of your ads came up, something that you were talking about, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, because I'm thinking back, where was that during the general election?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's micro-targeting.
Right, but the point is, you're running for Michigan Democratic Party, and I'm seeing this kind of work that you're putting in. If you're running for the president, I'm expecting to see 5-6 more times. And I'm telling you, there were weeks that I went without seeing anything about the former vice president. Something is wrong with that. So I think that you did a good job in trying to reach out
You know what's partly wrong with that?
What's wrong?
They assume that they had your vote.
You're right.
Why weren't you targeted? Because they assumed, because of a number of factors, that they had your vote. And that's another thing the Democratic Party has got to stop doing. We have to stop making the assumption that we have people, because we're losing people because of it. When you take somebody for granted, it makes them feel like they don't matter. And trust me, Donald Trump and Elon Musk were pushing messages into communities, pushing for their vote. And so, it's no wonder. I mean, we lost ground in every single category, except for black women. We lost ground in every single category. African American men still voted, I think, 84%, but that was down from President Biden. But we lost ground in suburban, urban, and rural. Less than people making $50,000 a year. Everybody we lost ground in, and I think a lot of it is we took people's votes for granted. We got to stop doing that.
Yeah. Every time people think that it's their shoe-in, and the other thing is, we have to stop anointing, and sometimes we pick a person that we want. It should be the people's choice.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have two good candidates. Fortunately, this time, we just got to make a decision on who we want. And finally, what is the message? Because my veteran, I'm a veteran, you know, and a lot of veterans says if you go in there and talk to this guy, give a shout out to the veterans.
Yep.
And what will you do, and how will you include them in the Democratic platform? Because we served and protected you to get to where you're at. Now
100%.
It's your turn to do some things for us.
So I've been endorsed by the Michigan Democratic Party Veterans Caucus.
I know.
We're proud to have that endorsement. But what I would say is that it's actually two factors. One, those that served this country and protected our democracy, we have a responsibility to make sure we take care of them when they come home. And the fact that we had to fight, for example, for coverage of people that were dealing with burn pits and other things,
Yes.
and the diseases that came out of it, that we had to fight our own government to take care of people that took care of us, and that we wouldn't be in this country if it wasn't for them, is really sad. And we got to make sure we're standing up. The other thing I think the Democratic Party has to do is bring veterans in to communicate to other veterans. They can get in rooms that, they don't want to listen to a politician, but if it's somebody who's actually from their community, who has experienced what their lives are like, I think we can actually bring them in and point out the fact that it wasn't the Democratic Party that was trying to stop people from getting coverage from medical things that happened overseas. It was the Republican Party that's doing that. We're seeing that same thing now. I mean, they're already looking to make cuts in federal employees at the VA. I mean, try to get an appointment right now. It's pretty hard. So, we have got to be the party that stands up for those people, but also we got to bring many of those people to make the argument to others, because that's, I think, can do it in a much better way than we can.
Well, I think the thing is that you mentioned to Joe earlier when you were answering the question in terms about it takes money.
Yes.
And let's talk about fundraising.
Yep.
And what's your, what is your plan then in terms of, say, when it comes down to fundraising for building and strengthening the party's infrastructure, including the local clubs, the county chapters, and organizations?
I'm glad you asked that question. So right now, many of the clubs don't even know who their members are. So we send out a email if you want to join one of the caucuses, and you click on the different things. Those don't even go over to the chairs, so many of them aren't actually getting those. Every time someone moves into your club area that signs up for the Democratic Party, we should be making sure that they actually that the chair knows about it, and that we reach out and actually tell them. We also want to form 3 committees: those that have increased the most membership, those that have increased their fundraising, and those that have increased their election results. And we're going to build best practices for every club and county across the state. It doesn't mean that what works in Wayne works in Wexford. It doesn't mean what works in Detroit works in Dowagiac. It doesn't mean that. What it does mean is that at least you have some playbook to run off of. You have to remember, these are all volunteers. You're trying to build an entire system around the state based on people's blood, sweat, and tears they give to the party. You have to give them some, actual process moving forward. And the other thing is that for our clubs, we got to get money to them earlier. We saw this last election cycle. You're asked to go get turnout in our communities, and we don't give you money till late September. That's too late. It's just too late. So we got to get those dollars into caucuses earlier to go out and make the case.
And see, that's the thing. So share the experience that you've had in terms of, say, with party building and fundraising efforts, and what successes have you achieved in the past?
Well, I've won 8 elections, but beyond that, I think the best story is the Senate Democratic Caucus.
Okay.
So I came in, we had 11 seats. We were in the super minority. We were a joke. Really, think about it. You in a purple state like Michigan, we had less than a third of the body. And so in order to rebuild, we had to rethink everything we did. Before the caucus was playing in 3 seats, we decided we were going to try to play in 10, and we did. We were going to recruit better candidates everywhere to actually make the case. Kelly Rossman ran up at Eaton County in a seat that was really hard to win. She got about to even. She lost, but she made him spend an extra $2.5 million that actually made sure that other candidates won. So we had to rethink how we raised money, how we organized, and how we actually recruited candidates. So that was really important. We went from 6 million to 12 million and 24 million. That wasn't just because people liked me. It's because of the sweat equity that you actually do in doing that. When I talk about rebuilding the Democratic Party and having to fundraise for all these things, we do it the exact same way. In the Senate, what we did was we sold candidates. Each individual candidate we would sell to funders. In this situation, we got to fund programs, right? If we put these people on the ground, it increases the voter turnout. And I can tell you, there are people across this country that care about Michigan. They know that Michigan's going to be a big thing in the next presidential year. They don't want a Republican Secretary of State. They don't want a Republican legislature trying to block the vote. They don't want any of those things. So we got to go out and travel across this country to bring the money back to Michigan to pay for our boots on the ground. We don't buy ads in the Democratic Party. We don't buy TV ads. What we buy is the grassroots boots on the ground that actually do the real work of the Democratic Party. We got to make sure that we're selling that across the country, and we can actually fund a much bigger program than what we have now.
So when you talk about trying to make certain that you fund a bigger program, one of the things that we found is that a lot of people were not really supporting the black media as much during this last presidential election. Do you plan to go and give more support to the black media?
Oh, 100%. And a big reason is because that feeling of being taken for granted that we've talked about and why people are leaving the Democratic Party is because we don't actually invest in those communities when it comes to the campaign. We spend everything trying to talk to those middle-of-the-road voters. You could win over the middle-of-the-road voters if your base doesn't show up. It doesn't matter. You got to do both. This whole idea that we have to run a campaign and just solve one problem is, just look at where we just came from. We got to solve it all. So yes, absolutely. We also, by the way, need to make sure in our hiring, in our printing, in our contractors, and all those things that those are reflective of the people that actually vote for Democrats. And so, I've seen a lot of losing consultants still being on the payroll. We got to make sure that those people, the people that look like me, we got to make sure that those people that have lost over and over again, we bring new people in, and it's people that actually understand the voices that are in the Democratic Party.
Okay, go ahead.
Wow, that's a lot said. Well, when we talk about accountability and transparency, how would you ensure transparency and accountability within the MDP, particularly regarding the financial issues that we have and the leadership actions?
Yeah, listen, I think that the State Central Committee has to be more democratic, which means there's more information that's actually out there. And for those of you at home, the State Central Committee is basically supposed to be the governing body of the Michigan Democratic Party. And I think a lot of people, including yourself, probably feel like there's a lot of rubber stamping going on.
Yes.
And that has to change. I should have to sell my stuff just like the party has to sell its stuff moving forward. So, we're going to make sure that financials are available to people, that we actually publish real budgets, and that people have access.
Well, while we're moving, what are the mechanisms that you're going to put in place for the conflicts and the interests of ethical concerns within the party? Because, this Gaza Strip situation that happened, there's a lot of problems that we're having, the internal infighting.
Well, I think the internal infighting you have to solve by allowing people to have different opinions in the party, but not treating them poorly. When you look at this last election, last state party convention we had a bunch of young people that showed up that were excited to come and vote for their candidate, and we treated them like they were the enemy. And when you treat people like the enemy, they're coming back, but they're not coming back to work with you. We have got to be a more open party when it comes to people that have different ideas and those things. Also, not allowing a Palestinian to speak at the National Convention. The idea that we just shut a group out and then hope they'd vote for us, that doesn't work. And I don't know why anyone thought it would. So to me, we got to make sure that we are the big tent that we say we are. And that means that we are the party of Jewish Americans and we are the party of Palestinian Americans, and both of them are welcome in the party and are allowed to have different opinions.
When I looked at the 300,000 votes that are in the Arab community and the Palestinian, all of that community, Dearborn and everywhere else, and I'm like, 300,000 votes, and you didn't think that warranted for Democrats to come in and actually talk with them?
Oh, that's the other thing, is that we gave that to Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump went up and showed up on the ground, and we didn't. I've talked to the mayor of Dearborn, and I've made him a promise that we're going to have a town hall in Dearborn after this election. And he said, it's going to be tough on you. And I said, that's okay. I got thick skin. But we got to go out and start having these conversations, because ignoring it is not ignoring it, wishing that it gets fixed. We got to actually be part of the problem solving of this. And what it really means is that we got to be respectful and listen. And the Democratic Party, the biggest thing we do poorly is listening. We just don't listen. And to me, that's what public servants. Chuck Schumer last week said that they're doing the things, fighting for people, but the people on the ground aren't hearing it. I think the opposite is true. They're not hearing the people on the ground. We need to make sure that those voices are being elevated, but we also need to make sure that our elected officials see the pain and frustration and the chaos that is going on. And I think if our elected officials would start being as loud as some of our citizens are, we'd be in much better shape.
Yeah, because it like I said, for me, as I say in Oakland County, a lot of the Democrats, I can't tell a Democrat from a Republican because they won't speak up for the concerns and the issues that we have. But when it comes time to vote, example, the Fair Wage Act, how Democrats voted, the second in command of the state Senate voted with Republicans. Now they tried to put something together last night at the last minute. Come on, you should have been leading the charge as a Democrat, saying you're going to vote no to this.
Yeah, no, listen, I was proud to support one fair wage. I was in the body when the Republicans pulled their nonsense move of adopt and amend to try to take the vote away from the people and then to try to change the bill afterwards. It was one of the hardest votes I ever made because we had to vote no on adopting a minimum wage increase and a paid sick leave because we knew their plan. They told us what their plan was. They were going to wait till after the election and then change the bill. And for me, for us to play along with that makes no sense whatsoever, especially when Matt Hall has holding hostage 9 bills passed by a Democratic legislature, including a really important bill to public school teachers that's going to dramatically lower their health care costs. And instead of saying, we're not going to do anything with you until you send those bills to the governor. Those were passed. That is the constitution. You're a parliamentarian.
Right.
Those were constitutionally passed legal bills that, the idea that the next Speaker of the House would command the clerk not to send a bill passed by both houses of the House and Senate and try to kill that off is it's never happened in Michigan history. Never happened.
Curtis, in the minute that we've got left, I want you to tell our viewing audience, what is it and the reason why voters, when they show up at the convention tomorrow, they should support Curtis Hertel for chair for the Michigan Democratic Party?
I think that my record stands for itself. At the end of the day, I'm proud to have the support of the UAW and the Michigan Education Association and the Michigan Black Caucus and the Pakistani Caucus and the Yemeni Dems and the high school Dems and the college Dems. We have built a really wide coalition. And the reason we've done that is because I feel very strongly that this party has got to be back to one team. And I understand that after this election, there'll be people that voted for my opponent and people that voted for me. At the end of the day, if I'm chair, I don't care how you voted. We're going to work with you to try to make things better because we have got to win this next election. So, if you're looking for somebody who's rebuilt the Senate, who's given his life to Democratic politics, and has a good record of winning moving forward, and being able to raise the funds to actually pay for the things I'm saying for, then I think you know which candidate you're voting for.
And my last quick question then is that will you, if you are successful tomorrow, will you come back on Truth to Power again?
100%. And I look forward to seeing you for sure. So I will be back on this show. And I'll be back on the show either way, actually. So I feel good about tomorrow, but at the end of the day, win or lose, I'll be back on this show. I look forward to spending more time with you.
Well, we are so fortunate to have had you on the show. We look forward to your the person that's also seeking the same position, because he's going to be on for the remainder part of the hour. And I definitely want to thank you, Joe Person, for getting an opportunity to take this journey along with me today.
I've loved it, but the most important thing, folks, come tomorrow and vote. And as I say, I'm wearing my Stetson because tomorrow's going to be the shootout at the Rinsen Corral. But come and look at the democratic process.
Well, and that's the biggest thing, because we definitely want people, because it's going to be crowded. So we recommend people to get there early, because the Republicans are also having their convention at the same time. So when it comes to parking, please arrive early. So we implore everyone, get there early so you don't get frustrated because of trying to find some place to park, and also your credentialing as well. Thank you to Joe Person for being my co-host today. Thank you for Curtis Hertel for being our special guest on the show today, and we look forward to seeing you in the very, very near future. And thank you, too, to Spencer for giving us an opportunity to go and have you to come on the show. So, Spencer Calhoun, thank you again for bringing.
We'll see everybody
this humanity.
Saturday. Thank you very
We'll
much.
see everybody on Saturday.
Have a good one now.
You've been watching Truth to Power, and we will be right back after a commercial break.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I want to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. Two of his three children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield, and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.
Your radio is now on TV. Your TV is now on radio. WHPR 88.1 FM can now be heard and seen worldwide. The same platform that hosts all of your favorite content now has WHPR TV and radio. Have your own radio or TV show on Roku with approximately 8 million homes. Debut your music video, clothing line, church ministry, plays, or products. A limited number of slots are available, so act now. For more information, visit RokuDetroit.com or call 313-868-6612. You heard about it. Now come be a part of it. Roku Detroit Worldwide. Approximately 8 million viewers.
Hi, my name is Norman Clement. I'm the president and CEO of Detroit Change Initiative, located at 2937 East Grand Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan, 48202. Detroit Change Initiative is a recognized 501c3 nonprofit focused on creating a platform that amplifies the people's voice for a collective change. Our website is www.dcimovement.org. You can contact us at info@dcimovement.org. We're a proud sponsor of Truth to Power TV show.
And welcome to our second hour of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. And as you see, we have changed our set with the people that are here. I've got to my right, my very special guest co-host is going to be Pastor John Hearn. And to his right is our other very special guest who I've known for a long time, and that is a candidate who is running for the Michigan Democratic Party chair, Al B.J. Williams. John, Al, welcome to Truth to Power.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I just want to ask, the first question I want to start out with, Al, is that who is Al B.J. Williams? Just tell our viewing audience, who is Al Williams?
Well, it's good that you asked. I'm happy you asked that question. I'm Al B.J. Williams, candidate for chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. I'm one of you. I was just here yesterday in the studio doing an interview. I've been to WHPR, grew up pretty much in this studio. I go back to Tatum Eason when the studio was on the other side of Woodward. So I'm one of you, one of your listening audience. If you love WHPR, you know Al Williams. I'm a hardcore Democrat from the city of Detroit. Which means I lean into my values, we fight until we win, we hold the establishment accountable, and we make sure that we are fighting for not just working families, but also the working poor. I grew up in Detroit, 7 Mile, Illinois, inspired by my mother, because she used to take me around knocking on doors as a kid. I would have the t-shirt on that said if I was 18, I'd vote for Coleman Young. We're passing out literature with my mom, and she was knocking on doors. So the grassroots spirit has been ingrained in me since I was a child. I've been involved in the Democratic Party. I didn't just get here. I've been involved in politics and always been involved in the Democratic Party. As a young Dem with my good friend, who's also been on this show 1,000 times, the former state rep, the late, great Isaac Robinson. We grew up in this party together. He's a Jewish American. I'm an African American. We were like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito in the Twins movie, running around this state recruiting young people to be more engaged in the Michigan Democratic Party, recruiting young people to be a part of the Michigan Young Dems, and recruiting young people to run for precinct delegate. I've been doing this for years. I have fought the establishment on a number of different levels. I've grown this party. I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually served as a staff member. I was the membership director for the Michigan Democratic Party, where I doubled membership in less than 2 years, running around this state once again, talking about the values of the party, talking about the importance of being involved in your community, talking about how what the value of the party is given to your community, and then getting people to sign up, not only to register to vote, but also to become members. And so, I've been doing the job as chair for a long time without the title. Even more importantly than that, I've been the executive director of the United Precinct Delegates with my fiance, who I met at a state convention, a Democratic state convention. I had to make sure she was a Democrat. Can't say that for everybody else. But I met her at a state convention, and she runs the United Precinct Delegates. I'm the executive director, and for the past 10 years, I've been recruiting precinct delegates and placing them, training them, and placing them. Joe Persons was one. The person who you just had on the stage, he used to be, I don't know what party he used to be affiliated with, but when he came to get involved in the Democratic Party, the first place he came to was the United Precinct Delegates. That's how he learned how to be a leader within this party. It started there. So I've been training leaders within the Democratic Party, including Joe Persons, for a very long time. That's who Al Williams is. I'm part of the fabric of this party. And when I saw after this election and during the campaign, I saw our party dying. And I'm walking into rooms, and I'm the youngest person in the room. I'm in my 40s. Our party is dying, not only internally, but externally. People don't want to be affiliated with the Democratic Party anymore because we got too many fake Democratic legislators who are not coming through on their promise. And so people will support Democratic values, but they tired of dealing with the party. And I'm running for chair because I think we need to shake that up, and we need to make sure that we are rebuilding the party from the bottom up and not from the top down. And that's who Al Williams is. Went to Morehouse College, UAD High School, grew up in Detroit. I'm a hardcore Democrat that won't stop fighting until we win.
All right.
Al, is there anything that has occurred in either social media or the printed media, a misconception about Al B.J. Williams?
Oh, man, so much. Where do you want to start? And I'm going to quote my good friend Isaac Robinson before I answer that question. Before he passed away in 2020, I gave him an award. Because I'm the founder and president of the African American Leadership Awards. And every year we do a lot. One of the things that we do is we highlight and tell the story of so many leaders that have come before us and inspire leaders of tomorrow. And so one of the awards that we give away is actually the Viola Liuzzo Award, which is dedicated to a Jewish American. I tell her story every single year about how she fought with African Americans to be more inclusive and get more African Americans into the fold, get them registered to vote and into the process. He won that award in 2020 right before COVID hit. And when he was there, he talked about our relationship and how we've been fighting for inclusion for a very long time. We've been, since before it was popular, 20 years ago, we was talking about equality and inclusion and making sure that the party stood on those values. And people didn't like us for that. We got involved in primaries. That's what hardcore Democrats do. If you run as a Democrat in Detroit, the election is the primary. And so sometimes you step on some toes. Sometimes you create some enemies because you're engaged, you're involved, and you're a Detroiter. And so you're going to be involved in a primary. So we run against each other. We fight amongst ourselves, unfortunately. But, in doing that, I've always been about inclusion. And so when I started running for chair, one of the things that I realized is there's so many voices that are not being listened to, not being heard. Black women, for instance, voices in this past election went silent. I mean, they were loud, but nobody was listening. Not the party, not the leadership. And I'm a black man, and I believe that although I'm a black man, this is not the Black People's Party. It's the Democratic Party. And so I've said that we need to be serious about being inclusive. Because we've had in this party, people, like for instance, I love labor. We fight for labor. We empower labor. We fight with their members. But this ain't the Labor Party. This is the Democratic Party. And Labor is one voice in a big tent. And they're not the only voice. And so we also need to be advocating for the working poor. And I see my competition is starting to talk about working poor now. I've been saying it the whole time. Now he's starting to mention not just working families, but working poor. I'm not a card-carrying member, so I've always advocated, card-carrying member of the union. So I've always advocated for not only working families, but I've also always advocated for the working poor. And so, you know, I've been in the newspaper. They have said that I've said that Jewish Americans don't belong in the party. That's never what I said. I said this is not the Jewish American Party. It's the Democratic Party. And Jewish Americans' voice is loud and welcome. This is the party for Jewish Americans, but they are not the only voice within the party or in the Big Tent. And they have taken that, as I've been the champion for inclusion, they took that statement and said that I've been saying that Jewish Americans don't belong in the Democratic Party, and that is not what I said. I said that we should be serious about being inclusive. Every voice under the Big Tent matters. Out of many, we are one. There are many voices under the Big Tent which make up the little d, Democratic Party. And every voice under the Big Tent matters. And I've always said that. And so Jewish, unfortunately, some people, the Detroit News, some reporter called, spin, and used that statement that I made. And I've been, now they're calling me a racist and an anti-Semitic. And I'm far from that. My attorney, when I told him this, he said, that's malarkey. he said that. He said, no, what does Joe Biden say? That's complete malarkey. Like, you are far from racist or anti-Semitic, and he's Jewish American. And so if I don't understand sometimes, if I say something that may be offensive, I apologize, first of all. But I talk to my friends who are Jewish Americans, and we talk about this. And I come out a better person every time. Because I understand after sitting down and having that conversation, knowing, both of us knowing, that we're about inclusion. I have an open heart, open ears. I'm all about being inclusive. And so I just wanted to make sure that I put that to bed, and we've been doing that all week. And so, no, I'm not a racist. They're trying to call me one. I'm not anti-Semitic, far from it. But I am honest. And the party needs to be serious about being inclusive, because we haven't been standing on that value for far too long.
And see, that's one of the reasons why we have you on the show today, is to make sure that if there's anything that needs to be dispelled that may have been put out about you or the person that you're running, against, we want to dispel that. But the first question I want to ask you, before we I turn this over to John, is that what is your vision for the Michigan Democratic Party, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Yeah, so I want to rebuild the party from the bottom up. Make it as big as it can be. There's no reason why we only have 12,000 members right now, but we have millions of people in this state who identify as a Democrat. We made it too hard to participate in this party. That's because of the establishment. They want to keep it close-knit so they can keep control of the money and the message. I've been a precinct delegate for more than 25 years, and I have recruited and trained precinct delegates, and I think precinct delegates are the bedrock of this party. And we don't treat it as such. In 2016, we lost by just over 10,000 votes. Right now, there are just over 5,000 precinct delegate positions within our state. So if you do the math, it means we lost by 2 votes per precinct. And one of the things that I want to do is put a fully funded, fully functioning precinct delegate program in place. So we have a precinct delegate in each and every precinct in the state. And if we had that in 2016 and those precinct delegates actually took 2 more people to the polls, we would not have lost. We would have done better in 2020, and I guarantee you, if that program was running for 8 years straight, we wouldn't have lost in 2024.
You've been doing so much with the precinct delegates. Tell the people that may not know, what is the role of a precinct delegate?
Yeah, so I've been a precinct delegate for more than 25 years. I've been doing the job as chair without the title, growing our party. Precinct delegate is the most local elected position that you can be elected to. You're elected in your community, in your voting precinct, basically. That's in your neighborhood, in your community in Detroit. In Marquette or in other rural areas, the precinct may be bigger, but it's still your community. And the role of a precinct delegate has changed. It used to be a time when I first became a precinct delegate that precinct delegates were the only ones with the power to nominate Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Supreme Court, all of the boards and universities, and colleges, and then the State Board of Education. We were the precinct delegates were the only ones with that power. Then now it's anybody who signs up to be a member of the Democratic Party 30 days before the convention has that power. So the role of precinct delegate and the power has changed. Now it's not just internally within the Democratic Party. It's both in the Democratic Party and in your community. Precinct delegates are supposed to be the bridge between their elected officials and their community. The bridge between city council, the state reps, state senate, the county commission, your congressperson, and your U.S. senator. I just met a guy today, or not today, a few days ago. He called me this morning. We had a long conversation, probably longer than it needed to be. But he's a precinct delegate, brand new precinct delegate, and he works at the airport. The moment he told Alyssa Slotkin that he was a precinct delegate, every time she sees him at the airport on her way to D.C., she check in. Every single time. And so, and that's great for her, but just as important, she recognizes the power of being a precinct delegate. That's a powerful role within the party and in your community. And we need to treat it as such. On the Republican side in the state, they have a precinct delegate in every single precinct. That's why they just won almost every single county. They put them to work. And they didn't just work during an election time, they worked all year round. So that's one of the many things that I want to do. That's how we start to rebuild this party from the bottom up, not from the top down. And, I'm an organizer. I think the next chair of the party needs to have that grassroots spirit, needs to have that organizing spirit, needs to know how to organize, needs to know how to fight back. I'm not a legislator. I didn't take the elevator up to the top. I didn't have the name recognition. I worked my butt off to get to where I am today. And that's where I think the next chair of this party needs to have. They need to have that grit, that scrappiness, that organizing tool. They need to use everything in the toolbox. And you can't do that coming out the legislature because you don't know how to organize. You know how to talk as a legislator. And we need that. That's important. I'm going to hire Hertel. He can go up to the legislature with me. We can check all the fake Democrats together while we up there, And I'm going to call the Senator Hertel too and make sure that he knows to vote into our values. As chair, that's what we need. We don't need somebody that's friendly with the governor. How you going to hold her accountable? How you going to keep her in check when she want to close Benton Harbor High School? That happened when she first got in office.
I remember that.
The mayor of Benton Harbor called me. I organized a whole group of people from Benton Harbor. I live in Detroit. To rally right in front of her office in Lansing. Paid for the bus. Had the mayor there. Had Isaac Robinson and other Detroiters who believe in public education there. Helen Moore, I'm telling you, Helen Moore was rooting me on. Like, how is she trying to close a public school when we should be investing in public education? That's a Democrat. That's not a Democratic value. So as chair, we need to hold elected officials accountable because sometimes they get out, they lose their way. Sometimes they lose their way, and somebody got to be there to bring them back.
Now, how would you settle, Al, some of the conflicts within the party, and what is your approach to settling them?
Yeah, I mean, open heart, open ears. I've been doing that for years. Settling conflicts, conversation, round table. Judge Deborah Thomas. I've been in this studio with Judge Deborah Thomas. She used to have one. I think she's had one of the longest running shows. She's no longer on air. She's no longer a judge. She just retired. But we talk about conflict resolution in the courts. How you have victims at a round table with the assailant, and both families at the table, and we talk about that pain, that hurt, and how it affected everybody on both sides. And once you have that understanding, the conflict sort of goes away and the understanding starts to appear. Understanding on both sides starts to appear. And so conflict resolution is something I've been doing. I'm black and I grew up in Detroit. I had to do it in order to stay alive. And so I can do it within the party. That's easy to me. Open heart, open mind, open ears, always lead with inclusion. Always. And help people understand within this party, our diversity is our strength, not our weakness.
Absolutely. John?
Well, can you tell me what is your, or let's ask, can you give me an example of what successful leadership from your experience actually looks like? And are you prepared for the role of the chair?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm prepared for the role as chair. John Conyers is a successful leader. I used to work for him.
Okay.
Trained me on the importance of being able to disagree without being disagreeable. That's a very important tool that you have to use, especially now within our party. I can go back to Neil Staber within his party. He was a former chair. If you haven't heard that name, you need to know that name. Neil Stabler is one of the reasons why the Democratic Party started to come back in this state after losing decade after decade after decade. It used to be a time that Michigan was an all-red state. We literally couldn't even get a Democratic state rep elected nowhere in this state. And so there was it was one time that we didn't even have a chair. And I tell you, I grew up as a Democrat. I usually mention this story about how I grew up seeing this sign, green, white, and black sign, and it had Williams on it and the word Democrat under it. And it was a yard sign for a guy who ran for governor at one point. I thought he was my uncle. Ended up being Soapy Williams. Soapy Williams don't look like me.
No, he doesn't.
But we don't talk about his leadership or that time enough, because they built a grassroots model and a grassroots organization that actually reestablished democratic power in the state. So Soapy Williams. Bob Millender is another one. And I'm gonna say this now. If you come into the convention tomorrow at the Renaissance Marriott, it's a very, very significant picture in the Millender Center, which is right across the street from the Renaissance Marriott. That's where my team will be meeting tomorrow to pay homage to the spirit and reinvigorate the spirit of Bob Millender. The Millender Center is connected to City Council and the Renaissance Center for a reason. He was very significant, a powerful leader behind the scenes. He was the kingmaker of all kingmakers. And we don't talk about Bob Millender enough. John Conyers wouldn't be where he was if it wasn't for Bob Millender. People like, and I forget his name, the longest serving Secretary of State in the state of Michigan, Richard Austin, wouldn't have made it to where he was if it wasn't for Bob Millender. Coleman Young would not have been where he was if it wasn't for Bob Millender. So when you talk about leadership and the role of empowering black people in the Democratic Party, and a person whose really name has been forgotten about, but is still on a very important building downtown, that's Bob Millender. Never was elected. Never. He knew the power of precinct delegates, and that's how he got Coleman Young elected, Richard Austin nominated as a black man for Secretary of State in this state. A lot of people don't even remember Richard Austin's name. I don't know why we're not telling his story enough. Longest serving Secretary of State in this country. Seatbelt law wouldn't even be talked about in this country if it wasn't for him putting it in place here in Michigan first. And so when you talk about am I ready, I lean in on the shoulders and I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah, I'm ready. I ain't scared of nobody. I'm so ready for this. And I know we can rebuild this party from the bottom up if we get it right this time. If we don't get it right this time, we're going to continue to do the same old thing expecting different results. That's insanity. We cannot afford to do that. Black folk in Michigan can't afford to do that. Don't go to the convention tomorrow if you black, fired up just to fight black folk. Don't go just to vote at the Black Caucus and leave. That's going out the world bass backwards. We as black folk need to be better than that tomorrow. And so I'm sending a clear message to everybody that is involved in the Michigan Democratic Party. Don't show up tomorrow just to fight each other if you black and you a Democrat. We got a chance right now. There's a black person running for LGBT caucus. There's a black person running for Michigan Young Dem. There's a black person running for black progressive caucus chair. There's a black person running for grassroots caucus chair. There's a black person running in just about every congressional district except for maybe 2. We got an opportunity, and we paying attention to fighting each other and not organizing to take over the party together. We actually might have the numbers tomorrow to do it, but we so focused on fighting the chair of the Black Caucus and making sure that we got a black person as a Black Caucus chair. What are we doing? And you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm saying this as a message to any and every black Democrat. Tomorrow, let's be about leadership. Let's be about unity. Let's not be about fighting each other.
It's very refreshing to see that you have a grasp of the history of the party and the strides that it has made over the years to get us where we are at this point. But let me ask you this. What is your top priority for the party at this point, and how do you plan to advocate for them if you make it into this position?
Our top priority is fighting now. We can't afford to wait. After this convention, an hour after the convention, we need to be fighting back because our rights are being trampled on daily. If you are not mad at Donald Trump talking about taking over the president, taking over different departments, including what has happened with DEI or what is happening with Doge. If you're not mad at what he has done in just the first 2 months or first month, it ain't even been 2 months yet.
That's right.
Then if you're not mad, something wrong with you. And if you are angry, then we need to turn that into action right now. And the only person that can lead us, of the two candidates, lead us immediately and start fighting, that knows every tool in the toolbox to organize, that knows what we need to do to fight back and resist, that's me. I'm the only one that's done it. I'm the only one that's ran and won a statewide campaign. I'm the only one that's raised money for everyone else except for myself. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that knows how to be an organizer. And so my top priority is to resist and fight back and get every single member of the Michigan Democratic Party involved and engaged. We're going to do weekly or bi-weekly call to actions so people can know how to step up and fight back. Because everybody's asking, what can I do? I can't take this anymore. How can I do it? How do I get involved? I want to do more than just show up to a rally. What can I do? Can I make phone calls? Yes, you can. And we're going to give you the tools to be able to do that.
And that's the important part, including everybody in the process. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Candidate, Michigan Democratic Party Chair, Al Williams. Co-host, John Hearn, Pastor. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Norman Clement. I'm the president and CEO of Detroit Change Initiative, located at 2937 East Grand Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan 48202. Detroit Change Initiative is a recognized 501c3 nonprofit focused on creating a platform that amplifies the people's voice for a collective change. Our website is www.dcimovement.org. You can contact us at info@dcimovement.org. We're a proud sponsor of Truth to Power TV show.
TV 33 is moving to WHPS TV channel 15.2. Make sure to rescan the channels on your TV. Then go to WHPS channel 15.2 to pick up TV 33 and all of your favorite shows. The move is on, and we want you to move with us to WHPS channel 15.2.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered. A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wcccd.edu.
I am very, very blessed to have Pastor John Hearn as my co-host on this last half an hour on this journey, and extremely plumb pleased to have Al B.J. Williams, who is the candidate for the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. Gentlemen, welcome to this last hour of Truth to Power. John?
Thank you so much for having us once again. Certainly appreciate this opportunity to engage. Well, there are a lot of pressing issues, going on in the state, as you know, and all of us in one way, form, or fashion are affected by education, health care, as well as economic development. These are pressing issues in the state that affect all of our lives in one form or fashion. What is, in your opinion, what is the most pressing issue if you get into this position that you will attack?
The most pressing issue that I would get into as chair is not necessarily a policy issue; it's a people issue. Mm-hmm. The most pressing issue I think facing the Democratic Party is getting our membership together. That's number one.
Okay.
But if you want to talk about policy, I will work through our membership, number one, to make sure that we're changing our message. I think that we need to stand on the values of this party, and we're not doing that right now. We're not. That means that if you look at what just happened yesterday in the state legislature here in Michigan, where Democrats voted with Republicans to fight against working people or the working poor, people who are looking for a minimum wage increase that was passed by the people, people who are looking for, their paid time off to be expanded. And these are things that the people voted on and passed. And we got Democrats who went against the people, voted with Republicans to do us in and decrease those numbers, really get away with highway robbery on minimum wage and paid and sick time. So I think the most pressing issue of our time right now is making sure that our party is leaning to our values on every single issue. When we're talking about the environment, we just in lame duck. We had all the power. Democrats had all the power. The governor's office, the Senate, and the House. And we didn't pass a bill that was been around for more than 10 years now, advocated for more than 10 years, to make water more affordable and make sure that it's clean. Water affordability bill. It would have changed the game in Michigan. Water warriors and organizers from Detroit to Marquette have been fighting on that issue with Democrats for a decade. And we had all the power to get it done, and Democrats didn't get it done. And so we can talk about these policy issues all you want to, but if we are not leaning into the values of the party and making sure that we have the right people in place doing it, all this talk is going to be for nothing. We've been talking about water affordability for a long time, and we had the power to do it. It didn't get done. We've been talking about changing and making housing more available and more affordable. We had a bill in Lansing to pass it. We had all the Democrats in place and didn't get it done. We've been talking about taking care of the working poor and extending clean slate for the longest. And making sure that organizations that work in the community to prevent crime had the money in place to continue their programs. We had all the power in Lansing. Had the governor, had the Senate and the House, and guess what? We didn't get it done. So we can talk about policy all you want to.
All right.
But if we are not holding the establishment accountable, if we are not making sure we put Democrats in place, not Republican light Democrats, not people who are willing to go against us to vote with Republicans. We need to put real Democrats in place.
Okay.
Throughout this state. That's my number one issue. That's my number one priority. We can talk about messaging. We can talk about each and every issue. But it don't mean nothing if we ain't got the right people in place to get the job done.
All right. Well, I guess one issue that I want to ask that you didn't address, healthcare is a big issue right now. And I just had a member of my own congregation call me yesterday, despondent because was turned down for health assistance, and has health issues going on. But the system there's so much bureaucracy in the system that nothing can get off of square one to get to the people that really need it the most. what would be your position in trying to streamline these basic needs that our people need?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, we're going to hire more organizers, and our organizers are going to be working not only to fight and resist with our allies against Trump and all these atrocities, but they're also going to be operating similar to as social workers in the community, making sure that people have information that they need in order to get by every day. That's absolutely essential. The party used to do that. Like, for instance, every single one of our headquarters should also double as a warming center during times like this.
Okay.
So kids won't die in cars or have to live in filth. I mean, we should be a part of the community and actually doing that. So organizing in the community and then making sure that we're stepping up to take care of our community is one thing. Healthcare, we need to get back to talking about and advocating for and making sure that we do it this time, healthcare for all, and improve our healthcare system. That was something that worked. Bernie Sanders won Michigan talking about healthcare for all. I can remember when I worked for Congressman John Conyers, him pushing the bill of single payer, which really should work. And we have a whole bunch of Michiganders who know it will work and benefit them. And so I can remember him having all these healthcare horror stories. People used to mail them in all the time because there were so many issues. So we want to improve healthcare both locally and nationally, but as a party and as party chair, we have to advocate for healthcare for all. We have to advocate to fix this system. And in our community, my organizers will be on the ground, not only advocating for the issues and our values, but also working with our allies and people in the community to make sure that they have the resources they need to so they know their rights as immigrants, the resources that they need to make sure that they are receiving the correct information about their health care that's been removed from the CDC website. I mean, we need to make sure that our organizers are also acting or doubling as social workers almost. That's how we fight back. And I'll give you a quick example of how I've done that as an organizer. When I worked with Moses, I was actually with the Harriet Tubman Center for Organizing. And we were organizing non-traditional voters, people who don't normally get out to vote. A lot of them were in the homeless community. And because in Michigan we're very special. If you're homeless, you can still vote. And so leading up to a year before an election, we started organizing people in soup kitchens. And what we realized was they'll get registered to vote. We can make sure that they get their ballot, but a lot of them didn't even have IDs. And so we doubled as social workers. And we started helping people to get their ID while recruiting them to get registered to vote and become members of the party. That's the kind of organizing we're going to need. That's just a microcosmetic level. But that's the kind of organizing we're going to need statewide. And it has to be 24/7 in Michigan, especially black Democrats. We do not have the luxury not to be organizing 24/7. We don't. We don't have the luxury. We can't wait till next year's election. We can't even wait till August of this year. We got to start now. Absolutely right now. Because in a minute, they're going to start coming for us. You think I'm playing? They're coming for the immigrants now. In a minute, they're going to start coming for us. It happens every time. You remember emergency manager law? Everybody was all, they just doing that to Highland Park. That ain't nothing. Oh, they just doing that to Pontiac. That ain't nothing. Then it was Ben Harbor. Then it was Muskegon. And then Detroit. That's how it works. And so if we don't start fighting back now, we next. As black Democrats, we don't have the luxury not to be organizing 24/7. And the next chair needs to know how to do that and give you the tools to be able to fight back as well.
Now, what are some of your strategies, Al, that you would employ to increase voter turnout and engagement in Michigan, especially with the underrepresented populations like black men and women, Gen Zs and Gen Xs?
Yeah, so I'm going to meet people where they are. I was a young Dem. I don't think we invest enough in our young people. The first thing that I'm going to do is invest in our young people. College Dems, young Dems, we are going to make a big investment in young people. Meet them where we are, meet them where they are. And I don't know about my opponent, but a lot of people think I'm cool anyway. So I want to bring cool back to the party. Democratic Party used to be the coolest party there was. I don't know where we lost it. But Obama used to walk in, he was on GQ. He made it cool. You know what I'm saying? So we have to get back to being cool again. That's number 2. So engagement, empowerment of young people. I'm going to make sure that people understand. Part of the strategy is to make sure that people understand that we are going to make sure that there's three things. I said delegate in every precinct, fight in every race, but this is important for what you were talking about. I say a poll worker in every polling location, put a poll worker at every polling location. But really what that means to me is standing up a county party in each and every county. Right now, there are 83 counties in Michigan, and every county does not have a functioning county party. How do we expect to turn out Democratic votes and win if we don't have a functioning county in every single county party? So I used to be the membership director of the Michigan Democratic Party. I told you I would travel the state. I was excited to talk about Democrats, excited to talk about our values, excited to grow our party. I did it and doubled it in less than 2 years. I used to go to Luce County, Emmett County, Sheboygan County, Marquette County, Hillsdale County, Gweebet County, Ionia County. Didn't matter. Marquette County, Holton County, up in the UP, way up here. Hillsdale County, and I was talking about our values, growing our party. Well, guess what? Some of those county parties no longer function. Luce is gone. Iron County is gone. And we can't expect to win in northern Michigan if we don't, especially in northern Michigan, in those rural areas, if we don't have a functioning county party. So that's one strategy. And then the biggest, the baddest, the boldest, the most cussed, the most fussed county with the most Democrats, Wayne County. We don't even have a county party. How do we expect to turn out votes? And we don't have a political Democratic machine just focused on turning out Democratic votes right here in the county. We can't win that way. The 12th congressional district isn't enough. They're spread through multiple counties. The 13th congressional, I don't even know what Kinloch be doing, but we won't get to that. It's not enough. It's not enough. We need a county party here in Michigan. And as chair, one of the strategies that I'm going to employ is to get the county party back. The second one, we're going to fight in every race, right? So I want to make sure that the next city clerk in Michigan or in Detroit and every clerk that's in a Democratic area where they're servicing Democratic voters or constituents for the most part is leaning into our values. So I want to fight in local races too. So as soon as Sunday, we are going to start mobilizing voters for municipal races, including this one here in Detroit. We don't have to support or endorse a candidate. The 12th can do that. The 13th can do that. Our job as a state party is to talk to non-traditional voters and turn them out now, so they won't be it won't seem like it's weird when we're coming to them in 2026. They'll be used to our organizers knocking on their door and helping them understand why this is important. We were just with you in the streets last year. Now I'm asking you to be with us at the polls this year.
And you raise a good point, because it's like you're anticipating my next question. And that's good, especially for me as an interviewer. But you mentioned in terms of, say, about strengthening the party's infrastructure.
Yes.
And how do you, and what are your plans for doing that, as well as including the local clubs, the county chapters and organizations?
Yeah, so I go back to my roots. Lon Johnson was the chair. I was blessed to have the opportunity to not only organize and strategize his campaign for chair, but then he made me his membership director and African American outreach director, right? And so I know the inner workings of the party very well. And so one of the things that I think we have to do immediately is make it easier to become a Democrat in the state party. That's number one. And so, you get people who go online, they get their membership, and then they never hear anything. I met a lady, went online 6 months before the election, purchased her membership, didn't get anything between that date and the election other than a fundraising email. She lived in Clinton Township. She was so pissed off after the election, she found a club to go to that ended up in Warren. Nobody told her that one of the fastest growing clubs in the Democratic Party in this state is the Clinton Township Democratic Club. And she didn't even know. And so we have to have some engagement immediately when somebody becomes a member. And the reason why we've gotten away from that recently with this party and this leadership, and I love them, is but they prioritize fundraising over our membership. So there are some people who went to the website, thought they were purchasing a membership, and really all they were doing was making a donation. And that's what happens when you prioritize money over people. And so fixing the infrastructure, we're going to get our membership together. I know how to do it. I was the membership director. We're going to make it easier and get engaged with people immediately who want to be a member of the Democratic Party. And then I'm going to start the co-op program. It used to be a co-op program. Co-op program is this for counties and congressional districts. Very easy. So if I live in Oakland County, I go on the website to purchase a membership. I pay, let's say, $30 for that membership. The co-op program will automatically make you a member of the state party and the Oakland County Democratic Party. Automatically. You don't have to go pay for 3 different memberships. So, and then if you pay for that membership, part of that money will go to the county. Some of it will stay to the state. The co-op program will immediately influx members into counties and congressional districts and money into counties and congressional districts. They're gonna be, it's automatically they're gonna be able to share the pot immediately. That's how it used to be. I don't even know why we got away from that. That's why Oakland County right now, because of that program, has been able to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their budget. That's why they're able to do the programming that they're doing right now, because they've amassed so much money from the co-op programs from the past that they still got basically an endowment. That's basically what they have, an endowment. And we don't have that in Wayne County. They don't have that in Washtenaw County because, there is no focus from the state party on building up these counties and these clubs. And as chair, that's what I'm going to do. We're going to reestablish a partnership, make sure that there's synergy, and I'm going to make sure that there's funding available for counties and congressional districts.
Now, when you look in terms of, say, give your other examples of how you've gone and did party building, fundraising efforts, and talk more about the successes that you have that you can share with our audience as well.
Yeah, I mean, so so I can remember, so as the membership director, one of the things I used to do, right now, if you're a member of the Michigan Democratic Party, you don't have nothing to show for it. Nothing. There used to be a time that if you were a member, you got a membership card.
Right.
I used to send out those membership cards. You can ask my fiance Tashana. I would call her up to Lansing. We would be in there with the Ingham County Dems. They were volunteering. She had to volunteer too, even though she always tried to get paid. But she had to volunteer too. She always trying to get some money out of me. But we would send out these membership cards to make sure people knew not only were they a card-carrying member, and that brought morale back within the party. A lot of people enjoyed saying that I'm a card-carrying Democrat. Mm-hmm. But they also knew when their membership lapsed or when they needed to update it because the date was on there. People don't know if they're even a member of the party right now or not. And so that was one success, that card-carrying member campaign that I had. Christine Jensen, the executive director of the party right now, became a member of the party when I was running that campaign about 12 years ago. I'm not playing. That's a true story. I got the picture to show it. But that's one success. I've been able to raise money for a lot of people, a lot of candidates. Last year alone, I raised $10,000 for Kyra, even though she was going to win. Hill Harper, I raised about $50,000 for. I brought Letitia James, the prosecutor or the New York State Attorney General, who the only person who's been able to get felonies on Donald Trump, the only person that stood toe-to-toe and beat him in court. I raised her some money last year because she is the epitome of black girl magic to me. All right. And so I've been very successful. Garland Gilchrist, when he ran for city clerk, we raised over $300,000 for him. A city clerk's race, over $300,000. And we got a donation from every single state in the union except for one. Because I made the race much bigger than him. It was about saving democracy in Detroit. And everybody bought into that across this country after the 2016 election. Because it took so long for our clerk to actually report the votes. And so it was easy that message was easy because it was still on everybody's mind 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, 6 months later. People were still thinking about how bad that election was. And so people were able, they bought into it. And so we were able to raise money there. And so I've been able to drop money bombs in politics and raise money for many, many candidates other than myself. And we're going to continue to do that. The next chair needs to be an individual that has been a kingmaker or the man behind the scenes raising money for everybody else. I've been able to do that. I've won statewide campaigns. I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually managed and won a statewide election. I ran the race to on Proposal 1 to end emergency management. We won that fight. It was the state legislatures and Tricky Ricky played some games with the name, and so we still got emergency financial managers, but we actually won that battle. There's no other candidate in this race that can say that they manage a winning campaign. And then, by the way, I've been able to help others win. I've been able to help others win in seats that they weren't supposed to win. And I don't know about you, Darwin, or you, but in my community, if you lose a safe Democratic seat, you don't get rewarded for it.
Okay.
There's no constellation prize.
Uh-huh.
If you lose a safe Democratic seat to a bad Republican, nobody is coming to reward me for that. In my community, you lose the bag, you don't get a bigger position for it. But for some reason, us as Democrats, we reward people who lose congressional seats. I don't know why we're doing that. And so, I think that I've been successful in helping everyone else. I've been successful in empowering others. I've been successful in growing this party. I've been successful in fighting back. I've been successful in winning campaigns statewide. I've been successful in making sure that the state party, when they come out with that statewide delegation, is diverse. All the way back to Brenda Lawrence, Lieutenant Governor, when they didn't want to put a black person on the race or on the ticket, we made it happen. Deborah Thomas, who I used to sit next to right here, when they didn't want to support her, I went out and raised her $300,000. Godfrey Dillard, when they didn't want to put a black person on the ticket, we went out and recruited Godfrey Dillard. One of the best attorneys in the land. He should have been an attorney general candidate, but they said we'll settle for Secretary of State. But then they didn't give him no money. I went out and raised money for him. No, he didn't win, but I was doing the job as chair when the party didn't even want to support him. And so all I'm saying is I'm part of the fabric of this party, and I have been for a long time. And I'm not stepping up because I want to be in a position or pad my resume. You hear the passion in my voice because I'm serious. I see our party dying. And the black Democratic portion of it is not as good as it used to be. We need better representation. Matter of fact, we need representation period as black folk. We ain't got it right now in Congress. And the ones we got in the state legislature don't even show up to work. Or the one we got. And so we got to do better. We have a unique opportunity right now to shake up the Democratic Party and force it to do better.
Something you just said regarding putting up a candidate and then they didn't put any money behind the candidate. Well, tell me this: how would you ensure transparency and accountability of the party regarding its financial decisions as well as leadership actions?
Yeah, our party is not democratic. It does not operate in a democratic fashion. I want to make everything transparent. Our state central meetings need to be transparent, and every member needs to know what's going on at state central. So I want to put it on I want to stream it. I'm not scared of Republicans finding out how much money we spent last month. I don't care about that. They're going to find out anyway. So why are we hiding our budget? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I want to make our conventions and our state and the governing body within the Democratic Party open and available for everybody to see. So for instance, a convention tomorrow in Detroit, we have the ability and the capability to allow people to vote virtually, but we require them to be there in person. And so that means we've just shut off everybody in the disability community, everybody in District 1 that's got to come from the UP. That's a 12-hour drive in some cases. That's a 3-day trip. We're cutting off ourselves at the knees. And so our state central meetings, our budget will be open to our members to view and see.
Okay.
Even the meeting will be open for our members to view and see. We'll stream it.
Okay.
And make it more virtual. We have to open up our party to our members and to get them more engaged. And so I'm going to be transparent. We're going to improve our technology, and we're going to make sure that everybody that's a member of this party who wants to be engaged can get engaged.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Now, let me say, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Al, is there anything that you would like to say to our viewing audience before tomorrow?
I'm so fired up to be in this, to have this opportunity along this journey. It's been a battle. It's been a battle. You know, I'm a Democrat, and I'm all about inclusion. I'm a hardcore Democrat that loves my party and loves my members. And I will fight with you every step of the way, no matter what, tomorrow is so crucial that we do something different than we have done. We cannot continue down the road of doing the same old thing. Not in our party, not in this state. We got too much at stake. For a long time, Michigan has been the shining example of how democratic movements get started. Labor movement, the environmental movement, women's reproductive rights. We cannot stop now. We have to continue to be that shining light. We have to continue to show the rest of the country how Democrats move mountains in Michigan, and everybody else will follow. We cannot do that if we don't hold the establishment accountable. We cannot do that if we continue to do the same old thing expecting different results. We can't do that by electing a legislator. We need an organizer. We need somebody who's serious about inclusion, focused on doubling our membership, actively going to empower precinct delegates, because I am a precinct delegate. We need somebody who's serious about raising money for everybody else, not just themselves. No one who's coming into this just to pad their resume, but somebody who's serious about getting Democrats elected. Re-inspiring the grassroots spirit in this party. I want to reinvigorate the spirit of Isaac Robinson.
Now, give your one before we wrap up. Give the people that are here with you in the studio today. Give your shout out to some of your people that came to the studio with you today.
I wanna first I wanna thank everybody on my team. I got Greg Pulowski, who's been with me every day. My good friend Bruce, who's been with me every single day, working with us 24/7. I got Anthony Thomas, who's out there somewhere. Tashana, the entire team. I mean, we got a great team. They've been working extremely hard, getting us around the state. 83 county tour in the past 2 months. Been to the UP 3 times since January. That's a 12-hour drive in some cases.
Impressive.
And so, we are serious about this. This is not a game to us. We're not practicing for nothing else. We're serious because we understand where the party is headed, and we think we have a plan to fix it. So we've been getting the message out. And so I want to thank all of my team. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Al Williams, candidate for chair. You can find out more about our campaign between now and tomorrow at alformichigan.com. That's alformichigan.com. The convention is tomorrow from 8 to 5 at the Detroit Renaissance Marriott. I have my organizing center is right across the street at the Courtyard Marriott in the Millender Center, and I spoke about how significant that is. You can meet me right in front of the Bob Millender picture. And, man, this has been a test, a battle. But we are not going to stop. We're going to keep fighting until we win. And my team is they fired up, just as fired up as I am about tomorrow. I'm so fired up to meet any and all Democrats who are ready to rebuild this party from the bottom up. I'm so fired up to meet and work with any and all Democrats who are angry about what's going on in Washington and angry about what's going on in Lansing. If you're angry and you ready to fight back, I'll be right there fighting with you as your next chair. My name is Al Williams. I'm hoping that I can earn your vote. I'm asking for your vote and support, and I'm asking you to show up tomorrow at the Detroit Renaissance Marriott to get involved in your party, get involved in your community, and let's fight back and rebuild this party from the bottom up. Thank you so much.
We want to thank you, Al, for coming on Truth to Power. We hope that you will come back more often in the future.
Absolutely.
John Hearn,
Yes, sir.
Pastor, where's your church at?
My church is located in the city of Garden City. It's Christian Faith Ministries of Garden City, 27500 Marquette Avenue, 1 block west of Inkster Road. And all are welcome.
And I do want to go and say, please, make certain whatever you do, go to the convention tomorrow. Please do not sit this convention out. Please attend. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and you have been watching Truth to Power, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday, same time, same station. Want to thank R.J. Watkins, the president of WHPR, for allowing us to get an opportunity to have the two candidates that are running for the chair position for the Michigan Democratic Party. Please, as we keep saying over and over again, go to the convention and get an opportunity to vote. Thank you both for being on the show today.
It's our pleasure.
Hi, my name is Norman Clement. I'm the president and CEO of Detroit Change Initiative, located at 2937 East Grand Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan 48202. Detroit Change Initiative is a recognized 501c3 nonprofit focused on creating a platform that amplifies the people's voice for a collective change. Our website is www.dcimovement.org. You can contact us at info@dcimovement.org. We're a proud sponsor of Truth to Power TV show.
Clean up on aisle 5. Sounds like my life right now. Just one big mess.
What's going on?
It's my property taxes.
What?
I am behind and I am so worried that I'm going to lose my house. I can pay some of it, but I can't pay it all at once.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm Eric Sabri, the Wayne County Treasurer. The last thing I want is for anyone to lose their property to tax foreclosure. We have assistance programs to help. Visit us at treasurer.waynecounty.com and we'll help you keep your home. We're here to help.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Matter. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I'm going to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. 2 of his 3 children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield, and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.